Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Mardek, and today, after having picked up a little bit more loot, most notably Fire Rod, there it is, for Emila, which has the new Flame ability, which will be an offensive fire spell for her to use, which will be very helpful for us in the near future. Also, the Empower Fire aspect, which, in truth, you guys were saying, does not do anything, so, alright, there is that to consider, I suppose. Maybe that's not as much of a factor as we might have hoped it would be, but nonetheless, the fire skill, the flame skill, will be very useful no less. So, we'll carry on here through the rest of the forest, and admittedly, we probably do not want to be skipping those encounters, and this one we cannot skip. The reason for that being is because I was asking you guys a little bit in the last video as to whether or not, slash to what extent, we were interested in... Whoa, that was a awkwardly timed reaction there, but... And there's the new flame skill. Whether or not, slash to what extent, we would be interested in seeing some grinding, because at least to a certain extent. I mean, that's, I suppose, maybe a bit of a strong word. But this is generally, I would argue, a good point to do a little bit of a check-in. That one was just my bad that time. So we could do the flame skill here, mostly just to get further along toward mastering it, because, well, obviously, this guy being over 100% resistant to fire damage does mean that he will heal if we hit him with fire. So, I mean, we can do this just for exemplary purposes, but he did also get poisoned, despite healing for 18 damage. You saw that the damage number there was actually in green, meaning that it did go up. And Zach is already mastered on the Berserk ability, so we'll just do some of that. But yeah, I think this is a good point to check in a little bit and see how we are feeling in terms of the relative strengths of our characters. Oh, and that's actually the offensive reaction mastered for Zach. As we were talking about earlier, he does not have an alternative at the moment in terms of his weapon, so it's not like that's going to change anytime soon. But one thing to note is, I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but we did find... Ooh, and the Green Mantis does go first. Just make sure we hit that reaction there. We did find that as soon as we saw Zach in the pub, that we were able to procure his services for 1,000 generic gold pieces. However, if you guys have been more aggressive with purchasing other things from shops, then you may have found that you were not able to do that immediately, in which case, I should note, because I don't think that I did earlier, that in truth, it is, if you have any interest in procuring the services of a hired killer, immediately after speaking about how violence is maybe not always the answer, then you don't necessarily have much time to do that. And we see, actually, the defensive reaction, damage soak 20, which is very strong, and something we were talking about trying to get on other people as well, and the soul strike offensive reaction, both of those mastered there. That might be something we can swap out Zach's armor to someone else to give someone else the opportunity to learn that, and the plus 10% MP on Mardek. But yes, so, one thing to note is, if you are at all interested in having Zach... Oh, he does still need the minus 20% damage reaction as well, so we'll give him a little bit more time with that armor. But if you are at all interested in having Zach join your party, now is the time to do it. So, this is a location where I do recommend that you grind a little bit if you do find yourself looking to save up a little bit more to be able to afford him, because, minor spoiler here I suppose, but if you do continue on story-wise without him, and now you see that there are other enemies that can use the Frenzy ability, or the Berserk ability, much like Zach can. So it does mean this guy's going to hit very hard, and therefore we want to make sure we're taking care of him. Maybe we skip the fire damage and go for the thing that just does the most damage, in order to make sure he doesn't, well, get the chance to do anything. Yeah, so if you continue on with the story, and do not talk to Zach and actually ask him to join your party, then you will find that relatively soon thereafter, he will no longer be in the pub, and you will no longer be able to speak to him and, well, get him to join your group. So for that reason, this is a location where you might find yourself grinding a little bit to level up your characters, learn and master some of your abilities, and also get some gold so that you can afford Zach. As I was saying, not something that we ultimately needed to do ourselves, but oop, would help if I hit those reactions. But that is something you may find necessary if you are at all interested in having Zach join you, which I do encourage you to do. Okay, so now we have the Blade Bees, and I suppose... No, we don't have anyone who needs this, however, we will still, I believe, gain 1 mastery point on our way towards fully learning this ability, even though we don't technically need to use it here. You saw a while back I was trying to do that outside of combat, and it did not let us. However, in combat, it does work, so that is another way in which to expedite the process. I did pick Flame. Okay, so here we'll find, since these Blade Bees are air elemental, fire will be extremely effective against them, so don't mind if I do. So we found areas that have been primarily water elemental, that being, oh, wrong area, Lake Quirr, of course. Areas that are primarily earth elemental, here. And so that has meant that at various points in time, different versions or different spells that Emla have become the most relevant to us. Like when we were in Lake Quirr, Stone Quosion was very good because it's particularly effective against water enemies. Lightning Bolt, particularly effective against air element, or rather I should say, earth elemental enemies. And then the Flame, we haven't had too many air elemental enemies. At least, not yet. But now, it is helpful against those bees. But as we saw before, the grills, of the bear variety in particular, those do heal when it comes to the fire damage. But, you know, take 2 out of 3 there, and then you just have Duke and crit to take him out. So yeah, if we were to do a little bit of a status check on ourselves here, we would find that obviously we have gotten Zach to join us, first and foremost. So that's going well. Then I would say this is also a good opportunity to check how things are going from a skills standpoint, and... Oh, Zach has not done the 10 damage soak defensive reaction. Does he have the ability to do it? He does now. That is something that we perhaps should have equipped earlier if he had the reaction points to do it. Likewise, magic reaction. Let's do a double check then for everyone else. See if there's anything that we can add on, or we did not have anything earlier. The antibody ability, we were talking about that earlier. Mardek did just learn 10% MP. So you can put on antibody, which will be helpful, and that does mean we could put the Lapis Lily on someone else in order to give them access to the plus 10% MP. The only person, I would say, that does not benefit much from this would actually be the person we're hovering over right now, Zach, because you may have noticed he has extremely low spirit, so his MP is actually quite small, only just 30. So he would burn through his MP quite quickly. However, none of his skills, at least as of right now, use MP at all. So he actually has no use for that skill. However, if we were to look at, say, someone like Emla, who is a spellcaster who has on several occasions run out of MP, then swapping out an agility ring for, say, Lapis Lily, give her even more water resistance and resistance to silence, as well as actually somewhat relevant, and curse, I suppose, too, for a spellcaster, because those things will potentially stop us from using skills, and that is the primary thing that Emla would like to use, given how her normal attack is not very powerful. So, let's make sure we equip the plus MP, which will mean that we will need to unallocate Insomnia, which is another skill that will become a little bit relevant quite soon. However, oh, so, and then the other thing, as I continue to go into all the dead ends here, that's what I get for not double-checking the map. This would also be a good opportunity if you have any cash left over after getting Zach, to see if there's anything from the shops, say, probably Canonia at this point, although I suppose you could go back to Gosnor, to double-check if there's anything that we have not yet gotten that would be helpful to us, because we're going to find loading up on some good gear will also be quite relevant right around now. So we have just over 1,000 gold pieces here. That does mean we could afford a breastplate, which again also gives us access to that 20 damage soak ability, which would be quite nice, and it is 4 defense relative to the 2 defense that Mardek and Dugan currently have on their chainmails. It is, however, a medium armor, which means that Mardek, Dugan, and Zack are able to equip it. Emla is not. The other things that I'm eyeing would be potentially the Gauntlet. It does have the minus 10% damage reaction that Emla does not yet have. Nor does Zack. Mardek's the only one who has it? Really? Huh. I guess there are potentially many people who could use this. It is 500 gold pieces, which is still fairly pricey. However, if there are multiple people who need that, then you could certainly make the case that is still worthwhile. As we saw earlier, with, I suppose on many other occasions, there is the opportunity for us to potentially find some of these things later on in our adventuring, so it is not always the best idea to go and buy these things super early and super aggressively. Unless, of course, you feel like you want to be a little bit proactive with learning those skills, which is kind of what I'm getting at here, is that that might be a useful thing for us to do. So let's pick up that gauntlet. I suppose we will. That way, we'll take it, yep. We can't quite afford the breastplate anymore, although we're quite close. And Mardek is actually the only person who does have this ability, so we'll swap things around a little bit here. We did take off Lapis Lily on Mardek, so he now has a free... would have had a free accessory spot, however, he does not really need this right now. We could put it on Emla, perhaps, and just give Mardek Copper Ring. Let's double check if Emla has room for that reaction. This is the one I'm thinking of. So that's good. Like I was saying a while back, Emla, not the tankiest of all of our characters, and therefore giving her access to more of those defensive abilities is going to be rather helpful. And we'll make our way into the Tainted Grotto. Be the next location again. If you have not yet spoken to Zack, and you are interested in having him join you, make sure you do that before you go in here. I believe the cutoff is as soon as you, well, take a few steps forward here. And look at this. Why does this not surprise me? Hey, soldiers, help me, will you? Why don't you ask Ya Lord to help you? I did, but I must have somehow upset him. But I don't remember how I did, but I must have, and he's ignoring me because I did, and now this is my punishment for doing whatever it was that I did wrong. Forgive me, Ya Lord. But please, we're here for the same reason, aren't we? We're all trying to get rid of the monsters and find the shaman. So please, let me come with you. We can all help each other. But do we really need your help? I mean, here you are, like this. You're obviously not as skilled as you claim. But... No, I think we probably should let him come with us. I mean, what harm could an extra sword arm do? Mardek, what do you think? Well, I think he can come along. He needs help, and we could use help too, probably, and he's offering. So let's work together. As you wish. Oh, thank you, soldiers. With myself and Ya Lord on your side, we're sure to succeed. Now off we go, for justice and honor! Okay, so, interesting point here. I was, of course, just asking you about whether or not you felt like you wanted to have Zack join your party, and now here we are with Vern, and he is a new party member as well, and we are limited to a maximum of 4 party members. Here you see, basically the game is asking us who do we want in our party. For that very reason, because we have access to 5, we can only have 4. You'll see that Mardek, Dugan, and Emla are all grayed out. That means that you must use them. They are central to the plot. And of course, we wouldn't really want to swap out our primary characters here, would we? So the main question is, do you want to have Zack, or do you want to have Vern under these circumstances? And don't worry, you can change this around if later on you feel like you change your mind. At the moment, I'm actually going to deliberately say, let's keep Zack. Reason for that being is because what we can do now is if we're feeling like, Zack, we don't really want you, let's just, real quick, take all of Zack's valuables off of him. By that I mean fire pendant, which is something that we might want to have on someone else. Mostly his chest plate, because that has access to a couple of useful defensive reaction skills. And the pickaxe pendant, which also has a useful defensive reaction. But now that we've done that, I mean, his sword, or his Shashik, double sword, is not as relevant because, well, nobody else has the skill to use that right now. So you see, when we go to the save crystal, we now have the option to also switch party members. So we can do that here. Now we can swap Vern in. We'll also see that Zach, I believe when we first got him, he was level 5, which was a little bit below Mardek, Dugan, and Emla, who have, for the most part, I think, now leveled up once or twice since then. But Vern, similar story, he is only level 5, so he's potentially going to be a little bit of a lower level than your other characters when you first find him, depending on how much leveling up you've been doing yourself. We'll add him here, and you find that, fittingly, when you do find him in his, well, the state in which we find him here, he's starting off with just 10 HP. However, fortunately, there's a save crystal / healing crystal right here, and therefore, you pick him up, you do that, and now he's back at full HP. So no big deal. He does have a sword and a shield similarly to Mardek's setup. However, you will find that if we scroll on down to Vern, he has some different abilities here. You might have seen these when we were hovering over the bronze sword earlier, and you might have thought to yourself, what is that Smite Evil ability? It doesn't look like Mardek can learn it. In fact, if you hover over Mardek at the time, and say, cannot learn. Along with Smite, which is an offensive reaction. So, as we will soon see, Vern, despite having access to many of the same skills as, or I should say, many of the same items as Mardek, does not have many of the same skills. So you will have his own take on many things, and he is, as you can probably assume, based on how he is using sword, shield, and now green chainmail, which is Vern's custom-made armor. It's essentially just painted chainmail with some minor magical enchantments, such as small protection against light elemental damage. It is, with that 25% light elemental damage, actually a slightly better version of the chainmail, both from a defensive aspect and that light resistant aspect. But with all this being said, Vern will be arguably the closest thing we have at this point to... Actually, I'm going to save here, just in case. Arguably the closest thing we have at this point in time to, I guess you could say... Well, I hesitate to say tank, because Mardek is actually our tankiest character at this point. He has the most HP. But he is your more prototypical soldier, I suppose you could say. And here you see, we're now in the Tainted Grotto, and we will run into some of these new versions of the chrysophages, these being just plain and simple phages. However, similarly to their previous iteration that we saw in the gem mines, humongous magic defense, 25. So we'll find that Emla, regardless of what kind of spell she chooses to use against these guys, not going to do very much. So theoretically, Lightning Bolt is the way to go. If we give it a shot here, we'll see he does precisely nothing. And to make matters worse, these guys do have access to a shield ability, which cuts their defensive damage that they take in half, making it so that no matter what you try to do, it is hard to take these guys out. They're some of the most defensive enemies that we will find at this stage of the game, the most, really. And so here you see one of Vern's abilities, which is Smite Evil, channeling a divine power into your blade while attacking to deal extra damage to dark elemental creatures. So Vern, being the holy warrior that he is, has many light-based attacks, which, against non-dark enemies, are not going to deal much in the way of extra damage, not much at all. However, you may find that that is more relevant in the future, so we'll see if we can hopefully get that skill mastered as soon as possible. And we can't quite take this guy out in one hit, and in truth, it may actually be more effective for Emla to try to punch him, and it is. And by punch him, I mean whack him with that fire rod, but you know what I mean. Now, will we be able to land Power Strike? We will. It's fortunate, because that means that Dugan is capable of dealing more damage than anyone else at this stage. And we might be able to finish the job here with Mardek. We are. So yes, if you'd like, you can, of course, continue on through here with Zach or Vern. Totally up to you. Since we can just pick up Vern, I think we'll use him for the time being. And there are 7 chests in here. carry on this way and find ourselves picking up some more coins, which might have been enough to bring us to the 1,000 coin barrier. See, that is just a circle. Let's not go this way. Which is significant because that does mean that if we were to go back to town, that we would find ourselves able to purchase the new breastplate if we wanted to do that. So that is an option. And here we see oozes, which is a new type of enemy. They have a ton of vitality, despite only having 29 or 32 life, depending on the level. You see that they actually have humongous defense, not magical defense. So all the more reason for us to pay close attention to that now, because that does mean that Emmela is going to be very good against the oozes, very weak against the phage, because the phage has magic defense. The oozes have physical defense. So, with that in mind, we'll do the lightning bolt. Maybe we try the flame. I mean, it's not going to be quite as effective as you can see here. They do have fire resistance and air weakness. I do, however, want to make sure that we are mastering the flame ability as soon as we can. Will it be enough to take them out? Not quite. That is unfortunate, but I suppose we were tempting fate there a bit. That ooze hung on with 1 HP, unfortunately. So here, again, the oozes are not going to take much damage from attacks. As you see there, precisely 0. However, we should double check. There's a chance that Vern does not yet have all of his offensive or defensive reactions equipped, so we should take a look at that after this fight. Okay, Vern, you're not going to deal any damage if you miss, of course. But the phage is the preferred enemy to hit with our attacks. And there you see the oozes do use spells, and quite powerful spells at that. So this area can actually be fairly dangerous. Definitely take them out with flame this time around. The oozes, that is. So another reason why this is, again, an instance where it may make some sense to make sure you have leveled up a bit, gotten a little bit stronger, improved your gear a bit, made it such that these guys are not going to, well, destroy you. Granted, shouldn't be happening too much if you're just speeding through here and you're not fighting too many of these enemies, but if you do a lot of it, you'll find that, I mean, after just one battle, Emmela is at basically half HP. Dugan, who has more life than Emmela, by a somewhat significant margin, almost at half-life himself. So it can add up quite quickly. So let's heal. We could even go back and save Crystal for a free heal while we're relatively close to it, so that could be an option. However, let's take a closer look at Vern here. Double check. He does have his Smite ability, his offensive reaction here, equipped, and this is an ability that adds, which is actually a very significant word here, an amount of damage based on Vern's spirit and level. Only Vern can use this skill. It's a unique offensive reaction, and the way that the math works with this offensive reaction is slightly different than the way that most other offensive reactions work. Or reactions at all, for that matter. It's a little bit more like a soak ability, in that it adds, in this case, although soak would subtract, a flat amount of damage rather than doing a percentage addition or reduction. Which means that he actually can oftentimes be relatively effective, even against, or at least I should say, can deal some damage, maybe not terribly effective, but more effective than, say, Dugan trying to hit the ooze for 0 damage. But he can hit and damage enemies that still have relatively high defense. Making Vern... Ooh, one more beat. Making Vern actually one of our best single-target characters going forward, which we'll start to see relatively soon. Poison bees are equally weak to both air and fire, so let's actually use the fire. Once again, we want to master the flame as soon as we can, ideally. And it is enough to take them, almost all of them out in one hit. But Dugan can finish things up there. Load up on the antidotes for Vern. Okay, let's actually... Okay, so as we can see here, the blue dot is the door. So if we were to go up here, we would skip a whole bunch of chests, which is probably not something that we want to do right now, given how there are so many of them here. Let's make sure we double back a bit and make sure that we pick this up. Liquid Light, a magical potion which can restore the sight of magically blinded enemies somehow. Maybe it's made of eye juice? Okay, so this is an item, a potion of some variety, that I think will be very helpful for us to have on hand, for reasons that at the moment I may not mention, but I'm sure you'll see soon. And so for that reason, let's split it up a little bit between our different party members. Make it so that Dugan has a few that he can use in battle. Same with Emila. And same with Vern. Okay, and then from a map standpoint, yes, we probably do want to double back a long ways, and so I suppose, in a way, this may have been, from a pathing standpoint, not the most efficient way to go through here. However, a way to run into a few more enemies, and we did see some of the balloons in the woods earlier. They're functionally the same here. I don't remember. They may technically be able to show up at 1 or 2 higher levels than we saw them in the woods. They are also high magic defense, not quite as high as the phages. And they are spellcasters themselves. They are somewhat weak to fire, very weak to air. So again, an instance of how much are we willing to tempt fate here? And we want to be careful with it because, as I was saying earlier, some of these enemies, including these balloons, can hit quite hard. Give them the opportunity to do so. Now, can Dugan land a power strike? He cannot. I was going to say that might help bail us out a bit here. And Dugan gets punished for missing it. As does Vern. Vern also got poisoned there. However, let's see what the Smite Evil ability can do here, along with his Smite reaction, assuming we land it here. And 107 damage there. Not bad. Not bad. That does not have the accuracy reduction that Dugan's Power Strike has, so bear that in mind. We also can actually have a useful remove taint on Vern here. Get rid of the poison. Not just one for the sake of getting a little bit closer to mastering it. Now this, again, is not going to do that much for us. It does get 1 balloon, certainly within striking distance. Now, do we want to get clever here? See if we can have Dugan take down one of the ones that has more HP. With a shot, I absolutely missed that one. It probably would have taken out that balloon had I landed it. Vern is not looking good right now. Will he get hit? He will. And there is our first person wiping. Vern, it was nice knowing you, buddy. Alright, this is Mardek here. Now, ideally, if Vern had lasted 1 turn longer, we would have been able to heal him up here. Suppose maybe we ought to have prioritized healing him rather than getting rid of the poison. Poison, not so significant if you go down. And also, like I was saying before, you know, maybe we tempted fate. Maybe it wasn't the best idea to leave those balloons alive as long as we did when we could have used the Thunderbolt to take care of them a little bit more expeditiously. We'll give Vern potions just to mock him. So, when a character does go down like that, you'll see that it's not permanent. No worries. He is still with us. However, he will be on 1 HP here, so, or at least, obviously he was down for the fight. However, in future fights, he will have 1 HP unless we go out of our way to heal him, which now will do. And 1 should do the trick. It does also mean that for those enemies that we fought while he was down, he did not get any experience. So that's potentially significant in some circumstances. We actually will go down here. Because that means that, at least for the killing blows there, he did not get any experience from those balloons, and he does have some catching up to do. So he is only level 5, whereas our other characters are, what, 8? Yeah. Okay, we'll continue to use Flame. A little more confident that we can take out Dismanted in a timely fashion. Granted, hitting our targets does tend to help, generally speaking. Mardek could use an M shield, however, remember that that is only for magic, and therefore not terribly effective under these circumstances when we would probably expect this Green Manta to use physical rather than magical abilities. We can remove Taint just for the sake of mastering this ability, which I suppose we can do here, because that is what Mardek needed to master it. And we are, at the very least, getting the opportunity to level up, or at least I should say, get some more experience on some of our defensive reactions. Getting much closer to mastering Flame. Take Command Wing, sure. And there you see, confirmation, Mardek has mastered Remove Taint. And if we go around this way, let's see what we find. Nothing here in this corner. However, get 5 potions, actually. Giving Vern a fairly decent quantity. So we'll double back now. Head up this way, and over to the left to see what, if any, tests we might want to pick up this way. Granted, if we're this close, I was gonna say, it might be worth just quickly stopping by the save crystal, giving ourselves a full heal, not having to rely on Mardek's heal ability, which, of course, does cost mana from him, and Emla also not looking great from an MP standpoint. I believe this will use all of her MP, so let's use our strongest ability against these guys, and hopefully take out the oozes, as we did there. And now the Phage does opt to use its defensive, physical defense shield. And here you see Smite Evil with the offensive Smite reaction does give us a little bit of extra damage. Granted, I suppose it's really the oozes that we want to test that against, less so the Phage. Mardek, I'm not so sure he's going to have enough damage to finish it off here, but let's give it a go. He does. I'm sorry, Mardek. I didn't believe in you. But now I should have. Should have known better. Okay, we'll continue to load up Vern a bit on the antidotes, because he is a little bit lower on those. So yeah, we're close by, so we'll at least save up, or I should say, heal up there. And now we'll head over to the left and see what we can pick up over here. And we'll see down here, there's a chest. And we'll get interrupted by more balloons. How close is Emla to mastering? Fairly close to mastering Flame. Granted, I believe it was the balloons that ultimately were taking us out last time. There isn't that much of a difference between using the Flame and using the Lightning Bolt ability from a damage standpoint. I mean, it should theoretically be, what, 50% more weakness. Fair. So I suppose that is something. And then, Dugan, how much damage do we think he can pull off with that Power Strike? I think that much will do. There's Dugan getting poisoned, and Emla with a stone drop in her head. So remember, bear in mind, maybe the life rather than the poison is a little bit more relevant here. However, both of them do seem to be fine at the moment. We deliberately target the one with the most HP right now. Well, we would have taken out the other one altogether. Maybe that would have been the better way to go. Maybe if we lower each of their HP, Emla might be able to take them both out with a lightning bolt here. Tense. She did. Maths. Sometimes it also just involves guessing. As was the case there. Dugan has mastered Insomnia, which is good, because that means that we can now switch over Dugan onto a different ability here, or different accessory, I should say, and give someone else access to that Insomnia ability. Has Dugan mastered? Pretty sure he did master the damage soak from the pickaxe, because I'm pretty sure we gave this to him first. Other than that, we could give him Fire Pendant. Oh, and we did, of course, take off Zack's armor, which does have the 20 damage soak, which Dugan does not currently have, so that might be a good idea to give him the ability to level that one up. But from an accessory standpoint, could put on Flame Pendant, giving him some fire resistance and the minus fire damage magic reaction. It's also not bad. I think we give maybe Vern the Cog Necklace here. Let's take a look how those reaction points are adding up here. So Dugan would need to unallocate something to make room for the damage soak. However, as I've said previously, I do think that the damage soak at this stage in the game might be quite a bit more effective. than the minus 20 damage. Minus 20% damage, I should say. Emla still can't quite get that one in. She has already mastered Insomnia, yes, so I think that means that everyone except for Vern has the access to the Insomnia ability. Fantastic. So for that reason, I mean, he is currently immune to sleep while he has it equipped. However, I think that would be very helpful to have everyone in the party able to not get hit by sleep also. Dugan is currently poisoned. So we could either use a antidote in our inventory, or we could opt to use the remove taint ability. And what you're feeling in terms of how much MP you're willing to sacrifice on Mardek and how many antidotes you have at your disposal. Granted, we do have a lot, so either one would probably work. Okay, and remind me, have we doubled back down here? We have not, so there is a chest in this location, giving us more antidotes. Actually, a ton of them. That was 8 over there. So now Vern totally loaded up on those. No problem. And did we... Okay, the way we get over there is to go around in this spirally circle over here. And more of an opportunity. Start to level up those defensive reactions. And I think we established that we can take out the oozes in one hit if we use Lightning Bolt. Or I suppose we might have been able to do that with Flame as well. I don't remember if we were pulling that off or not because they don't have a lot of HP. We might have been fine with that. Here comes the balloon with, again, some poisoning, relatively high damage spells. The Vern can get his revenge. And more of those items, more potions, not bad. And so we used Mardek's remove taint ability earlier. Now we'll use the antidote just to mix things up a little bit, show you the 2 different ways in which we can remove those poisons, although we've had plenty of opportunity to do that previously. Should be 2 chests over here. We'll see what we find here. Mugwort juice, potion made from the mugwort herb, has some sort of healing properties, apparently. It restores 500 HP, and may or may not cause seizures. Okay, so I don't think we want to put it on Mardek, because Mardek is our healer, and this will be our strongest healing item at the moment. So we probably want to give it access to someone, or give someone else access to it, someone who cannot normally provide healing. Maybe, I'm thinking either Dugan or Vern, because they are tankier than Emla, or therefore are more likely to be alive and capable of using it. And then here's a copper breastplate. Let's take a look at this. It's not the just normal breastplate, which is actually stronger still than this. It is just a defensive upgrade here. You'll see 3 defense versus the 2 defense on the chainmail. The minus 20% damage defensive reaction that we did have on Mardek and Dugan's initial chainmails, and Vern actually, does not have that. So ultimately, that might be a useful thing for Vern to pick up. However, at the moment, he's still working on the defensive reactions on his own chainmail. So this looks like something that, at least for the time being, we ought to put on, say... Hold on, because I'm also realizing we have this bandit leather, which is a fantastic armor that we should have had on someone earlier. Dugan has mastered everything with it. Mardek, I'm thinking, might be the best option here, because as we just saw, Vern is still leveling up his defensive reactions there. Mardek has not mastered any of these. It's a little odd to give Mardek the additional agility, because he is naturally he is the slowest character in our party. It is a little bit helpful, because of course, if he can go before some other people in combat, namely opponents, then it does make it easier for him to heal before, you know, our friends get taken out, as was the case a little while ago. As for the evasion reaction, I suppose evading damage 20% of the time is better than taking 10% less damage. A little bit more hit and miss, When you don't get hit at all, it is certainly better. When you do get hit, it's obviously worse. But 20% better than 10%. So, with that, I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up this video. So with that, I will see you all in the next one when we explore the Tainted Grotto even further and see what mysteries it has hidden.